Friends, when you open the map, it's impossible not to notice that small, strange piece of land right in the heart of Europe, yet completely cut off from it. Kaliningrad, or Königsberg as it was once known. For years they told us this place was Russia's dagger thrust into the West. Nuclear missiles, warships, intimidating bases. But take a good look at those red lines on the map now. Because do you know what that intimidating military base has become today? A huge room with the door locked from the outside and the key thrown into the sea. The threat is over, replaced by sheer helplessness. That locking sound is not just an effect. Warsaw and Vilnius have officially locked the door on Russia. Have you heard the news coming out of Warsaw? Believe me, there's a chill in the air in the Kremlin corridors right now. Poland said, "Enough is enough," and closed the critical doors. Meanwhile, things have descended into complete chaos at the Lithuanian border. Thousands of trucks are officially stranded on Belarusian soil. Picture this: miles-long queues, drivers waiting with their engines off under the snow, and a massive logistics fleet unable to move a single step. This isn't that boring customs procedure you hear about in the news, folks. This is like cutting off Russia's lifeline. It's like pulling the plug on the last land connection to Europe. Until now, the sanctions were just on paper, but now they've hit the asphalt and started to hurt. There's a famous saying, "An army marches on its stomach." So I ask you, what happens if the food truck going to that stomach, the spare parts truck going to that tank, gets stuck at the border? Today on Mr. Warlog, we're setting official statements aside. We'll talk about how Russia's most strategic stronghold, Kaliningrad, has turned into an open-air prison, and how the goods rotting at the border are leaving the soldiers at the front without equipment and ammunition. Even his allies can't get Putin out of this trap. If you're ready, buckle up. We're entering that iron ring. Let's start our analysis from the epicenter of the crisis, the Polish border. According to the latest information from Visa HQ and local sources, the Warsaw administration has decided to suspend some border crossing points with Russia and Belarus and has issued a travel warning for its citizens. What does this mean? Look at the geography. Kaliningrad is an exclave with no land connection to mainland Russia. It's like an island, but surrounded not by sea, but by NATO countries, Poland and Lithuania. Russia has two options for reaching this region by land, either through Poland or through Lithuania. By closing the gates, Warsaw has completely paralyzed the southern route. This decision does not only prevent tourists or civilians from crossing. The real target is commercial logistics. Dual-use goods, chips and spare parts that can be used for both civilian and military purposes, going from Europe to Russia were being smuggled across these borders. With this decision, Poland has cut off the smuggling highway. Now, not even a bird can fly across that border. Kaliningrad's southern gate is closed tight, as if concrete had been poured over it. This is the first sign of suffocation for the Russian presence in the region. The southern gate is closed, but what about the eastern gate? Lithuania, Russia's biggest headache. According to a report by Charter 97, the head of the Lithuanian Freight Transport Companies Association revealed a shocking truth. Trucks are still blocked in Belarus. The situation is this: trucks picking up cargo from Europe or transporting goods from Russia to Europe fall into a black hole at the Belarusian border. Lithuania, the country enforcing the harshest sanctions, is thoroughly searching every vehicle coming through Belarus or refusing to allow them to pass. On the other side, the Belarusian regime is retaliating by holding European-plated trucks hostage, delaying them, and subjecting them to bureaucratic torture. The result? Thousands of tons of logistics cargo are rotting in the middle of the border. What do you think is in these trucks? Just chocolate or furniture? No. There are spare parts, medical supplies, and industrial equipment vital to Russian industry. The logistics chain is stuck in the Belarusian quagmire. Lithuanian officials are saying it plainly. This is not trade, this is war. And in this war, Russia's transit passage dreams have been dashed. When you add the restrictions on train lines to Kaliningrad, the quotas imposed by Lithuania, the region is being driven into complete isolation. So, who's affected by all these border closures? Approximately 1 million Russian citizens living in Kaliningrad. It no longer feels like part of Russia. It feels like a forgotten island in the middle of the ocean. With the land borders, Poland and Lithuania, effectively closed, There is only one way left to bring goods to Kaliningrad: by sea. Ferries departing from St. Petersburg. But the logistical crisis, as noted by Ukrinform and other sources, is erupting here. Russia does not have enough ferries. The ones it does have are transporting military supplies and cannot meet civilian needs. The governor of Kaliningrad is begging Moscow, "Send us ships!" However, the Baltic Sea is now a NATO lake. With the participation of Finland and Sweden, Russian ships are constantly monitored and under constant pressure. Construction materials are unavailable in the city. There is no cement, no iron. Prices have tripled compared to Moscow. Even a simple medicine or baby formula has become a luxury item. Citizens are suffering, businesses are going bankrupt. Kaliningrad, once the Russian showcase in Europe, is now in a state of misery reminiscent of the Soviet-era shortages. Geographically, the people are in the heart of Europe, but in terms of living standards, they are plunged into the darkness of the 1990s. Now let's look at the bigger picture. Is this just Kaliningrad's problem? No. Ukrinform's detailed report confirms that there is a growing logistics crisis across Russia. You can produce a tank, but you have to import the ball bearing in its engine, the chip in its sight, the rubber in its tracks. The closure of the Polish and Lithuanian borders, the bottleneck in Belarus, all of these are choking the Russian defense industry's supply chain. Everything from the soldier's boots to his canned food on the front line depends on this logistics network. When the network breaks down, the soldier on the front line goes hungry. Tanks wait for spare parts. Logistics experts call this the domino effect. A truck stopped at the Kaliningrad border could mean a Russian artillery battery falling silent on the Donbass front 3 weeks later. Because that truck may be carrying chemicals needed by the factory producing artillery shells. Even though Russia is trying to turn its railways towards China, nothing can replace the technological and industrial inputs coming from Europe. As the war drags on, logistical fatigue becomes deadly, and the Kremlin cannot stop this bleeding. Friends, so far we have discussed how the walls outside were built. Poland closed its borders, Lithuania locked them. So, what was Russia's plan B for that vast empire? For years, the Kremlin told its people this fairy tale. Don't worry, if Europe closes its land borders, we will transport by sea. Our Baltic fleet, our civilian ferries are ready. Kaliningrad will never go hungry. So what is the truth? The truth is that the plan B was nothing but a big lie, a billion-dollar corruption story. Right now, Kaliningrad Governor Alexei Bezprozvanik is calling Moscow behind closed doors, pleading, "Send us ships! We are drowning! The trucks are rotting in the port!" But there are no ships to send. Why? Because Russia's civilian merchant fleet in the Baltic has become a ghost fleet due to years of neglect, an inability to find spare parts because of sanctions, and the state spending its resources on yachts. Logistics experts and maritime reports reveal a grim reality. To feed a region like Kaliningrad, which is dependent on external supplies, has a population of 1 million, and hosts a massive army, at least 20 to 25 large ro-ro ships, ships that carry trucks and wagons, need to operate non-stop every day. So, do you know how many ships are currently operating? Only 4 or 5. Yes, you heard right. Only a handful of ships are working to feed a city of 1 million, its industry, and the army's enormous appetite. And this is where the real tragedy begins. Who gets priority on these ships? The people? No. The priority is military supplies going to the Ukrainian front or bases in Kaliningrad. Trucks carrying flour, sugar, medicine, construction materials, or electronics needed by civilians wait in line for weeks, sometimes months, at the UST Luga port. Drivers sleep in their vehicles, goods spoil. This is the Kremlin's betrayal of its own people. Moscow has sacrificed the people living in Kaliningrad under the pretext of protecting what it calls its strategic base. What happens when logistics stop? The economy doesn't just stop, it becomes gangrenous, and tissue death begins. What is happening in Kaliningrad right now is not called inflation, it is called black market terror. Do you know what the biggest symbol of this terror is? It's not gold, it's not dollars, it's cement. A city must breathe, grow, repair its buildings, and fix its roads. However, When the train quotas coming through Lithuania were filled and the ships were insufficient, cement suddenly fell into the black market in Kaliningrad. Its price tripled, quintupled. The construction sector completely collapsed. Thousands of workers, craftsmen, engineers were left jobless overnight. Unfinished buildings loom like ghosts in the city's skyline, like gravestones for Putin's promises of development and progress. I read the censored messages from the local people. I went to 3 pharmacies to buy a pack of baby diapers, and when I found them, the price was double. My car's brake pads are worn out, and the mechanic says, "There are no parts. It will take 2 months for them to arrive by ship from Moscow, if they arrive at all." Think about it, my friends. You are in the heart of Europe, closer to Berlin than to Moscow, in the 21st century, but you cannot find brake pads for your car. This is the return of those infamous, shameful deficit queues from the final days of the Soviet Union. Vladimir Putin came to power promising to make Russia a superpower. But after 25 years, what he has given the Russian people is indistinguishable from the misery of the 1980s, the stagnation of the Brezhnev era. Market shelves are the clearest mirror of the state's impotence. And right now, that mirror reflects the Kremlin's helplessness. There is an incredible historical irony here, even a tragicomic strategic blindness. You know the famous Suwalki corridor on the map? That narrow strip between Poland and Lithuania, called NATO's weakest point. For years, Russian generals and Kremlin propagandists appeared on television and said what? If a war breaks out, we will capture the Suwalki corridor with our tanks in 2 hours, unite Kaliningrad with Belarus, and split NATO in 2. Moscow used this corridor as a weapon, a means of blackmail, held to Europe's throat. So what happened today? The corridor they threatened has now become their prison wall. Russia threatened that corridor so much, tried so many hybrid wars, migrant crisis, cyber attacks, that Poland and Lithuania turned it into the most protected, most militarized region in the world. Putin's show of force, instead of scaring NATO, united them and turned that corridor into a wall of steel. This is called a self-fulfilling prophecy in strategy. If you constantly threaten your neighbor by saying, "I'll break down your door," your neighbor will put 3 locks on the door, pour concrete over it, and post a guard in front of it. This is exactly what is happening now. Russia wanted to use Kaliningrad as a Trojan horse. But NATO nailed the Trojan horse's doors shut from the outside and left the soldiers inside, the Russian army and people, to starve. This is one of the greatest strategic backfires in modern military history. Russia is trapped in its own castle. But what Moscow should really fear is not NATO tanks at its border. The real danger lies within, in the silent thought growing in the minds of the people of Kaliningrad. And finally, we must mention the Kremlin's biggest nightmare, that silent whisper. When an empire weakens at its center, the outermost parts break away first. Kaliningrad was already geographically detached from Russia. Now it is beginning to break away spiritually as well. There has been an identity crisis among the local population in the region, especially among the younger generation, for years. Who are we? Are we Russians? Or are we Europeans who speak